I knew something was wrong the moment I heard their voices outside my door. My husband wasn't home, and he never told me anyone was coming. Yet there they were, laughing too loudly, calling my name like they belonged there. The clock on the wall read past midnight, and every instinct in my body told me not to move, not to breathe, not to make a sound. But the knocking came again, harder this time, followed by one of them saying, "We know you're inside." My hands went cold. Things hadn't been right between us for weeks. He had been distant, distracted, like his mind was always somewhere else. He stopped asking how my day was. Stopped looking at me the way he used to. Even when he was home, it felt like he wasn't really there. And his friends, they had started showing up more often, staying late, drinking, laughing in ways that made me uncomfortable. I told him once that I didn't like how they looked at me, how their jokes crossed lines. He brushed it off like I was overthinking, like I always did. The knocking didn't stop. It turned into banging. One of them called out again, louder, sharper this time, "Your husband sent us. Open the door." That made my heart skip. Why wouldn't he call me himself? Why send them instead? I stepped closer to the door but kept my distance, my fingers hovering near the lock without touching it. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out thinner than I intended. "Just open the door," another voice said, impatient now. "We need to talk." Talk. At this hour. Without him. Nothing about it made sense. My mind raced through every possibility, none of them good. I thought about ignoring them, pretending I wasn't home, but they already knew. They weren't leaving. I could feel it in the way they stood there, in the way their voices carried certainty instead of doubt. I remembered the last argument I had with my husband. The way he looked at me, not angry, not even upset, just cold. Like he had already made up his mind about something and I wasn't part of it anymore. That look came back to me now, sharper, heavier. "Open the door," one of them repeated, slower this time, almost like a warning. I took a step back. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it through the walls. Every second stretched longer than it should. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation, that maybe this was all just badly timed, badly handled. But deep down, something darker was forming, something I couldn't ignore. The handle moved slightly. Not enough to open, but enough to tell me they weren't just waiting anymore. A quiet click echoed as someone tested it again. My breath caught in my throat. "You shouldn't make this harder than it has to be," one of them said, his voice losing whatever friendliness it had before. Harder for who? I looked around my house, my safe place that suddenly didn't feel safe at all. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. I realized how alone I was. No neighbors close enough to hear. No one expecting me. And still no word from my husband. Why would he send them? That question kept circling in my mind, louder than everything else. It didn't fit. It didn't make sense. Unless this wasn't just about a message. Unless there was something he didn't want to say himself. The handle jerked again, harder this time. "Last chance," one of them said. My chest tightened. This wasn't a visit. This wasn't concern. This was something else entirely, something planned, something deliberate. And whatever it was, I wasn't ready for it. I stepped back slowly, my eyes fixed on the door as the wood trembled under another forceful push. The sound echoed through the house, final and threatening. That's when it hit me, clear and undeniable. They weren't here because they cared. They weren't here because he asked them to check on me. They were here for something I didn't understand yet. And whatever it was, they weren't going to leave until they got it. The door didn't give them permission. They took it anyway. The lock snapped under pressure, the wood cracking just enough for them to force it open. The sound echoed through the house like something breaking inside me. Before I could react, they were already stepping in, one after another, carrying the night in with them. Their energy filled the space too quickly, too confidently, like they had done this before, like this wasn't crossing a line to them. I stepped back instinctively, creating distance, but it didn't matter. This was no longer my space the moment they decided it wasn't. "You shouldn't have made us do that," one of them said, brushing dust from his sleeve as if he had just walked through a door that belonged to him. Another one pushed the door shut behind them and locked it from the inside. That quiet click felt heavier than the break before it. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steadier now, not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear wasn't going to help me. They exchanged glances, small smirks passing between them like shared secrets. "We told you," one of them replied casually, walking further into the room, looking around as if inspecting something. "Your husband sent us." That sentence should have reassured me. Instead, it made everything worse. "He didn't call me," I said quickly. "He didn't say anything about this." "That's because he didn't want to deal with it himself," another one cut in, his tone sharper, more direct. "So we're here." "Deal with what?" They moved around without asking, sitting down, touching things, making themselves comfortable in a way that felt deeply wrong. One of them leaned back like he had all the time in the world. Another stood closer than necessary, his presence pressing against my personal space without actually touching me. I stayed where I was, watching them carefully, trying to understand their rhythm, their intent. "If he has something to say," I said, "he can say it to me himself." A quiet laugh followed that. Not loud, not mocking, but knowing. "You still think this works like that?" one of them said. "You still think he owes you that?" The words hit harder than they should have. "What is that supposed to mean?" I asked, my chest tightening again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was something else creeping in, doubt. They didn't answer directly. Instead, they started circling the topic, asking questions that didn't feel like questions. "You've been arguing a lot, haven't you?" one said. "He's not happy." "That's not your concern," I replied immediately, but my voice lacked the force I wanted it to have. I felt something twist inside me. "And you do?" "We understand enough," he said simply. They weren't shouting. They weren't threatening in obvious ways. That was what made it worse. Everything about them was controlled, deliberate, like they were following a script I wasn't part of. "He's been patient with you," one added, almost casually. "But patience runs out." I shook my head, more to myself than to them. "No. That's not true." "Whatever he told you." "He didn't lie," the same one interrupted, his voice dropping slightly. "If anything, he held back." Silence followed that. Heavy, suffocating silence. My mind started pulling pieces together, moments I had ignored, things I had brushed aside. The late nights. The short answers. The way he stopped defending me when his friends made comments that crossed the line. The way he started agreeing with them instead. That question changed something in the room. The smirks came back, but this time they stayed longer. One of them stood up, taking a step closer, not enough to touch, but enough to make his presence unavoidable. "He told us," he said, pausing just long enough to let the tension build, "to handle things." Handle things. The phrase echoed in my head, empty and full at the same time. "What does that mean?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want the answer. They didn't respond right away. Instead, They let the silence stretch, watching me, measuring my reaction. One of them tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was something to be figured out rather than a person standing in front of him. "It means," another finally said, his voice almost calm, "that he trusts us to do what's necessary." Necessary for what? I took a step back, my pulse racing again, but this time it wasn't just fear of them. It was fear of what was starting to make sense. "You're not making any sense," I said, but the words felt weak even as I said them. "We don't need to," he replied. "You'll understand soon enough." That was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't just about them being here. This wasn't just about intimidation or pressure. This was something planned, something discussed without me, something my husband had a role in. I looked at each of them, really looked this time, searching for any sign that this was a misunderstanding, that I was reading too much into it. I didn't find it. Instead, I found certainty. Confidence. The kind that only comes when you know exactly why you're there. "What did my husband tell you to do?" I asked again, quieter now, but sharper. No one answered immediately. Then one of them smiled, slow and deliberate, like he had been waiting for me to finally ask the right question. And in that silence, I realized something far worse than fear. I realized I might already know the answer. No one rushed to answer me. That was the first thing that confirmed it wasn't confusion anymore. It was intention. The silence stretched, heavy and deliberate, like they wanted me to sit in it, to feel every second of what I had just asked. Then one of them exhaled slowly and said, "You really don't see it, do you?" I didn't respond. I just watched him, forcing myself not to look away. "He's done," another one added, more blunt, less patient. "He's been done for a while." The words didn't land all at once. They sank in slowly, like something cold spreading through my chest. "That's not something you get to say," I replied, my voice low but steady. "If he's done, he tells me himself." A quiet chuckle came from the side. "He tried," one of them said. "You just didn't listen." That hit harder than I expected. Not because I believed it, but because a part of me remembered every argument, every moment I chose to hold on instead of letting go. Still, that didn't give them the right to stand here and speak for him. "You're twisting things," I said. "Whatever he told you, you're turning it into something else." "No," the one closest to me said, shaking his head slightly. "We're simplifying it for you." "Then simplify it," I shot back. "Say it clearly." Another pause. Another exchange of looks between them. "He doesn't want this marriage anymore," one finally said, his tone flat, like he was stating a fact that didn't need emotion. "And he doesn't think you'll let it go easily." I felt my jaw tighten. "So he sends you?" I asked. "That's his solution?" "He trusts us to handle what he couldn't," came the reply. Handle. That word again. It sounded worse every time I heard it. Memories started flashing through my mind without warning. The early days when everything felt simple. The way he used to wait for me, the way he used to defend me, even in front of these same people. The difference between then and now felt unreal, like I had missed the moment everything changed. "You're lying," I said, but it didn't sound convincing even to me. "Why would we lie?" one of them asked calmly. "What would we gain from that?" I didn't answer because I didn't have one. Instead, I focused on something else, on them, on their behavior, on the way they carried themselves like they had already won something. "You're enjoying this," I said quietly. That made one of them smirk. "We're doing what needs to be done." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You're taking advantage of a situation you didn't create." And you're in denial, he replied immediately. The room felt smaller with every word. But something inside me was shifting too. The fear was still there, but it wasn't controlling me the way it had before. It was mixing with something sharper, something clearer. If he wanted out, I said slowly, he could have said it. He didn't need this. He did, one of them insisted. Because you wouldn't accept it. You don't know what I would accept, I snapped. We know enough, he said. We've seen how you hold on. How you argue. How you refuse to see what's right in front of you. That accusation hung in the air, and for a second, I almost let it pull me under. But then I noticed something. A small inconsistency. The way they kept repeating the same idea, the same justification, like they were convincing themselves as much as me. You keep saying the same thing, I pointed out. But you're not actually telling me anything real. What do you want? One of them asked, slightly irritated now. The truth, I said. Not your version. His. Another silence. This one different. Less controlled. That's when I knew I had found something. You don't actually know everything, do you? I said, my voice gaining strength. He didn't tell you everything. He just told you enough to get you involved. Their expressions shifted, just slightly, but enough. And you didn't question it, I continued. You just showed up, thinking you had the right. We have his permission, one of them said quickly. That's not the same as the truth, I replied. For the first time since they walked in, there was hesitation. Small, but real. I took a step to the side, creating space, not backing away but repositioning. Watching them more carefully now, not just reacting. One of them noticed and adjusted his stance, like he was trying to close the gap again. You should stop thinking you're in control, he said. I'm not in control, I answered calmly. But neither are you. That landed. You're here because he sent you, I went on. But you don't even fully understand why. You're filling in the gaps with your own assumptions. That's not true, he said, but there was less certainty in it now. Then explain it, I challenged. Explain exactly what he told you to do. No one answered immediately. Because they couldn't. And that silence told me more than anything they had said so far. The truth wasn't as clean as they were pretending. It wasn't as simple as he's done or handle it. There was more, and they didn't have it. The man I trusted with my life, I said slowly, feeling the weight of the words as they left me, sent you into my home, and you don't even know the full story. None of them spoke. The balance had shifted, even if just slightly. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was seeing them for what they really were, messengers without clarity, enforcers without full understanding, standing in a situation bigger than what they had been told. And for the first time that night, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt resolve. If my husband wanted me broken, I said quietly, meeting each of their eyes one by one, he chose the wrong night. They expected me to panic after that. They expected tears, pleading, confusion, something they could control. When none of that came, the air shifted. Not in my favor yet, but enough to make them uncertain. I stopped stepping back. I held my ground and let the silence work for me this time. You keep saying he sent you, I said calmly. But you still can't tell me exactly what he told you to do. One of them scoffed, trying to recover control. We told you. He wants this handled. That's not an instruction, I replied. That's an excuse. His jaw tightened slightly. Another one looked away for a second, then back at me, as if recalculating something. You're overcomplicating it, he said. He's unhappy. He wants out. We're making sure you understand that. You breaking into my house is not understanding, I said. It's intimidation. No one denied it. That silence gave me more room. I took it. You didn't come here with a plan, I continued. You came here with half a story and too much confidence. That's enough, one of them snapped, stepping closer. Don't think this changes anything. It already has, I said, meeting his eyes without flinching. Because now I know you're guessing. That hit something. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the way the others shifted slightly, not as aligned as before. You said he trusts you, I went on. Then why didn't he trust you with the full truth? No answer. Or maybe he didn't trust you at all, I added quietly. Maybe he just knew you'd show up without asking questions. That's not true, one of them said quickly, but it sounded defensive now, not confident. Then prove it, I said. Call him. That changed everything. The room went still. Not tense, frozen. Call him, I repeated. Put him on speaker. Let him tell me himself. None of them moved. Because they couldn't. You didn't even think about that, did you? I said. You walked in here like you had authority, but the one person you're speaking for isn't even here. He doesn't need to be, one of them muttered. Yes, he does, I replied immediately. Because this isn't your marriage. It's mine. And if it's over, he says it. Not you. Another silence. This one heavier than all the others. They look at each other again, but this time there was no smirk, no shared confidence. Just uncertainty. That was the crack I needed. You don't scare me the way you think you do, I said, my voice steady, controlled. Because this stopped being about fear the moment I realized you don't have control over this situation either. You're still alone here, one of them said, trying to regain ground. Don't forget that. I'm aware, I said. But being alone doesn't make you right. I took a slow step forward this time, closing the distance they had been trying to control all night. That alone made them hesitate. You walked into my house thinking I'd break, I continued. Thinking I'd accept whatever version of the truth you brought with you. No one interrupted. But you don't get to define what this is, I said. And you don't get to finish something you didn't start. One of them exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. This is pointless, he muttered. She's not going to listen. No, I corrected him. I'm not going to obey. That distinction landed harder than anything else. For the first time, they looked like they were reconsidering why they were here at all. You should leave, I said, not loudly, not aggressively, just clearly. Because the longer you stay, the more this turns into something you can't explain later. A pause. You think we're worried about that, one of them asked, but there was hesitation behind it now. I think you should be, I said. Because whatever he told you doesn't cover this. It doesn't justify this. That lingered. One of them looked toward the door. Another shifted his weight, no longer standing as firmly as before. You've made your point, one finally said, though it sounded more like he was convincing himself. I didn't come here to make a point, I replied. You did. And you failed. That was it. The balance tipped. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough. One of them walked to the door and unlocked it. The sound of the lock turning this time felt completely different from before. It wasn't control. It was release. They didn't say anything else. No final threats, no last words. Just a quiet, uneasy retreat, one after another, until the house was empty again. The silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It wasn't heavy with fear. It was clear. I stood there for a moment, letting everything settle, letting the reality of it all sink in without rushing it away. They hadn't broken me. But something else had. I looked at my phone again, still no messages, still nothing from him. That was the final answer. Not what they said. Not what they implied. His silence. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't even feel shock anymore. Just clarity. You didn't break into my house, I said quietly to the empty room. He let you in. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't wanted to accept before. That night didn't take my safety. It took my marriage.